could
It's
get
my
onto this
meeting with
land
Irish
bridge
ferries. I'm still excited.
I mean, land bridge is a great issue. You've rightly spotted, but I wouldn't want to steal.
No, I don't want this.
No, that's fine. Thank you. I mean, on the land bridge, which we know, following on from getting very good question on the amount of delays. We know that the National Assembly for Wales' External Affairs and Additional Legislation Committee actually said it was unlikely that the UK land bridge between Ireland and continental Europe will be bypassed after Brexit, given we go through a deal on it. Would you agree? We don't know what's in store.
Absolutely. What it will depend on, Anna, is when Geraint said that Dover would be significantly more prepared than the Welsh ports. It's actually not true, because the Welsh ports, the three of them put together, wouldn't cater for the traffic that Dover caters for on a daily basis, which is in or around 5,000 vehicles. The Welsh ports have mainly one or two ships arriving at any one time. You've got ships, you've got the train, Dover, Folkestone, all coming into the one direction. So that's what will cause the delay for us. If it means arriving in Dover and there's a significant backlog because of immigration, agriculture, customs, you've got at least four agencies that you will be checked by. And then again on the French side, whereas if you can circumvent all that by going direct. My issue is, and we spoke about this collectively, the driver and the labour shortage that has ensued in the industry, and it's nothing to do with Brexit, but it is expected to get much worse post-Brexit, because the average age of a driver is an age where they will not put up with what has been perceived in past times as the denigration of what they do. There's regulation and over-regulation ensues authority from all of these agencies on people who are just doing their daily work. And if a driver meets 4 regulatory enforcement agencies, he's been spoken to basically in a manner generally that he's been talked down to, he or she has been talked down to. And the workforce will deplete. And that's an issue for Ireland and the UK, and actually for the EU in general. So it's a huge issue that we've got to protect our workforce from the mental stress of Brexit. And that will be, although it might take us 7 hours longer to get to mainland Europe, we'll have certainty and we'll have absolutely no angst.
Just quickly ask, how many extra hours would it take you to get to mainland Europe?
So currently our fastest sailing is Rosslare to Cherbourg, and that's a 17-hour sailing. It can be, if you put the boot down and increase the knots, it could be as little as 15, and we're looking at Rosslare to Le Havre, which is a 15-hour crossing. So strictly speaking, a delay on both the Welsh port and Dover, there's not that much difference.
If I might, and then straight back to Anna, if just gently sort of suggest to you that any vehicles going towards Germany, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, etc., would be quite significantly delayed because they'd still have to drive over them.
Yes.
Yeah.
It would be significant. It's not the option, but Le Havre would more service the Benelux and that area. But I mean, again, if you take a certain amount of traffic on the Cherbourg route, that means that you've got less traffic on the transit of the land bridge. And they're the ones that would probably necessitate. And again, it depends on the product. Absolutely depends on the product. If it's time, date sensitive, perishable product, pharmaceutical, high end.
But as we know, Calais is a good port to get into the Benelux, Germany area.
Absolutely.
So from Le Havre or from Cherbourg, towards Calais, I mean that adds quite significantly to a journey time.
5 hours. About 5 hours. For Le Havre, about 3.5, and from Cherbourg, 5 hours. So you'd have 5 hours extra driving to Calais.
Plus your 17.
Exactly. Plus your 17. So It's not by any means, that's why I say it's expensive, but from a mental stress perspective, it may be what the drivers will choose. It's an on-off. It continues to be roll-on, roll-off.
So what planning is the industry, the road haulage industry, doing now for that scenario? What are you and your members
in Ireland?
In Ireland?
Absolutely none. There is nothing we can do, Anna. There is we're lobbying very, very stringently to have Rosslare Europort made Brexit ready, because clearly it's not an agricultural inspection post. It needs to have a status, Tier 1 status, that would align us with Rosslare and Le Havre. So there's quite a lot of work to be done. It's in the planning stages to accommodate just the agencies. So we're looking at, without a shadow of a doubt, 3 to 4 years before Rosslare Europort becomes ready. And that's service in Fishguard and Pembroke. Dublin, Holyhead, similar. Dublin is trying to prepare some space, because they expect that obviously with customs inspections, agency inspections, there isn't any space because it's a roll-on, roll-off service. Everybody drives in and drives out. So again, there isn't any preparation from the haulier's perspective, just none, except maybe re-establishing. And I do have some inquiries from UK operators to establish in Ireland. And again, that gives them the ability to continue. They won't need ECMT permits if they're trading with the EU. If their industry is just Ireland or UK continental, again, they're not going to need the permits.
Can I just say one more thing about the permits? You raised it again. It is not certain that European operators will not require ECMT permits as well. So to come into the UK, Irish hauliers, if there is no bilateral agreement and there is no deal, EU hauliers may require ECMT permits to come into the UK, and Ireland is quota limited, and so is France, and so is Germany, and so is everyone else. So those ECMT permits are limited in their numbers, and that is why, if we get into a situation where we don't have a future trading relationship, we're going to end up needing to engage with our fellow European partners and do bilateral deals so that lorries can continue to move. The other thing about the supply chain that you need to really understand is that the road haulage supply chain is driven by reliability and predictability. Transit time is very important, but actually for just-in-time deliveries, reliable transit time is the foundation on which everything is based. If you know you've got another 17 hours to put in your supply chain, that means that you might not be able to carry some goods, but for the rest of the goods, you will know that it's just 17 hours longer. It will be more expensive, but it's predictable. The problem we're going to have with the land bridge is that any land bridge system that is put in place in a no-deal situation will have massive elements of unpredictability in it, because customs clearance processes are unknown at the moment. And the other thing people need to understand is that unlike container ports, ferry ports do not have inventory systems. No container leaves a container port without customs saying, yes, leave. There is no such process for road haulage. The ferry comes in, and at the moment, it drives off. There is no one's there putting their hand up except for the occasional border force. They turn around and say, I want you over here. And so when people are talking about the 4% inspections and all the rest of it, that's absolutely not the point. The point is all of the vehicles have to have an authority to enter into the UK. Either they're cleared through customs or they're in transit. And that status is known for a container port. It is not known for a ferry port. And that is where the major change will happen.
Thank you. What about, now we know that there is the fear about a soft land border between the Republic and Northern Ireland, but perhaps a hard sea border between the Republic and the UK and Britain, Great Britain. Given we know that the UK government has at the moment, but things change day to day, has ruled that out at the moment. Hour to hour, yes. Could you tell me how Welsh ports would be affected, how the haulage industry would be affected? Perhaps Sally?
Okay, I'll attempt. From my understanding that the moment obviously you've got the hard border effectively within the sea, then we would then have to play customs policemen, and we would then have to treat anything coming in as rest of the world. From my understanding, I'm getting a nod from my left, so I hope I'm correct. So there would still need to be checks, and perhaps trusted trader deals would need to be put in place for that to be able to work. Holyhead would definitely need to be ready to be able to do these customs checks, so that would be some significant investment.
Right, okay. Thank you. Do you want to comment on any of that?
Not really. It comes back down to what Duncan has said. It just means that it's a different regulatory system, and we really just need to know which system. It doesn't really matter. It does matter, of course it matters, but I mean at the end of the day it's not for us to decide, it's just for us to prepare, and we can't at the moment.
So, I mean, what would you then say? Because it would be good for us to have an understanding. You're talking about your own industry, quite rightly, road haulage industry and transport. That has an impact on what those hauliers are transporting, where the goods and services are ending up. Are you having those conversations with suppliers where that's going to in effect be disrupted, whatever deal, no deal, bad deal is going to be in place?
Shippers and consignees don't know what to do either. They don't know what the future is holding. And these conversations about land borders and sea borders, at the moment there are effectively no customs borders. There is a VAT relationship which is done automatically through VAT agreements, and everything works seamlessly. And as a haulage company, as a haulage organisation, whether a haulier is delivering to Dortmund or Dorking, it doesn't matter. They can just do it at the moment. Everything you do that actually puts a customs in to Donegal or wherever is just adding friction. And we will have to deal with whatever comes our way. If it requires a load of paperwork to do Northern Ireland, then I'm sure that will be done. It would be undesirable. I'm not sure what the politics of that are. I think the politics of that are very difficult. You're the politicians. You need to make the decisions on that. As traders, as businesses who are physically moving the goods, we just need to deal with whatever those paperwork handovers are going to be and those physical handovers are going to be.
But I do think it's important, and I don't mean to interrupt, albeit that we will work with whatever the solution is, it is extremely important for our sector. In our budgetary proposals this year, I've estimated the cost of Brexit, with or without, not necessarily a hard deal, but just the disruption, that year one, 180 million euros, just to our sector in Ireland. If you look at the timelines, when Duncan says it's just in time, every truck that takes a load into the UK is booked in with a delivery time. If you miss that slot, you wait till the next day, because if not, you disrupt everybody. So it is the certainty that is relied upon, and that can only come with the frictionless border. Anything else is uncertain, and you disrupt the whole of the country. And if you look at what BMW are saying and all these companies, I worked in Vauxhalls, and when you are on a line, nothing stops, and everything depends on having the parts in place when they're required. And it's moved on so much that parts are ordered on a 24-hour basis. Everything is done because it can just arrive. There isn't an impediment except for a breakdown, something unforeseen. But ultimately, the whole system has evolved in 20 years with frictionless trade. And anything that happens other than another referendum is going to disrupt that and cost money.
May I bring in Tonya? Tonya, may I just ask if everyone else is happy, maybe you could ask your question as well, because it sort of follows on quite well from what we've just been talking